We'd like to thank our sponsor, iZotope, the absolute leaders in intuitively designed plugins for audio restoration, mixing, and mastering. At iZotope.com, you'll find a plethora of tools and suites that will enhance your audio production, whether it's voice, video, podcast, or a full production recording session. Check out the industry standard audio repair tool, RX11, or the multi-tool mixer plugin, Neutron 5, or the powerful Ozone 11 mastering suite, plus tons more. Go to iZotope.com and use the code FRET10 at checkout for 10% off. That's FRET10 to get 10% off at checkout. And again, the website is iZotope.com, IZOTOPE.com.
No, we share writing credit, because at the end of the day, I mean, it's just Tortoise. I mean, it kind of becomes the sound of all of us,
What's happening? Thank you so much for tuning into Hyphenate with me, your host, Randy Randall. This is our show for Thursday, July 10th, hitting right in the middle of summer. I'm so blown away and honored and stoked to welcome guitarist, composer, improviser, the one and only Jeff Parker as my guest on the show today. I sat down with Jeff a couple weeks ago. He has a number of shows coming up and also a record that's recently come out. His most latest record is available on International Anthem Recordings. You can go to their Bandcamp. It's how do we say this? INTLA. So it's like international. Oh my gosh. Well, you know what? Go to his Instagram. Even easier. If you go to his Instagram, it's Jeff Parker Sounds. JEFFPARKER Sounds. There'll be a link down in the description below, and then you can hit his links up there. But it's International Anthems is the name of the label. It's The Way Out of Easy. Wow. Yeah, Jeff is incredible. I first knew Jeff or got to know Jeff through the music of Tortoise, as I'm sure a lot of people first have been made aware of him there. But he's got such an incredible, cool story, and I'm very humbled discussing guitar music with Jeff. I obviously, my background is in punk and noise and, very rudimentary sort of guitar scrapes and figures and fake jazz fingerings or whatever, I was able to get away with, crawl away with in my ever evolving guitar journey. But Jeff is the real deal. Berklee trained, similar to our past guest, Ella Feingold, who also has a new record coming out. I was excited to see she's releasing that record that she was mixing when we last talked. So look out for the Ella Feingold record dropping, I think, this Friday. I was like, wait, she's releasing the record on July 4th. It's kind of badass. But Jeff has a bunch of cool dates coming up here. If you were in the Chicago area in September 10th through the 14th. At Sound and Gravity, the Jeff Parker Expansion Trio. He also just recently did a Tiny Desk concert, and he'll be in downtown Dartmouth, October 9th through the 11th. And then Sawyer, Michigan, Sunday, August 10th. He's got shows coming up this fall. So go follow Jeff at Jeff Parker Sounds on the Instagrams, and you can see all of his dates and recordings that are available on International Anthem. And yeah, hope everybody's doing good. Hope everybody still has all their fingers and toes from the 4th of July weekend. I hope you are standing in resistance to this version of America that is being foisted upon us. I don't know. I think about it a lot, and I guess, like all of us, it's a daily meditation that I have for empathy and for mercy and grace and just looking for a way to be a source of light in this world. I think I'm guilty as anybody else of being darker and nihilistic in my quiet moments, but I really try to hold space for some light and positivity to come into the world and through me, and that I can help, do something, man. I think just remembering the humanity of all people here, and as we, as a country, as a world, grieve and are just, horrified by the actions of our country, of our leaders. And really just hold the humanity and go out there and just, I don't know, man. I don't know if I have a call to action for anybody out there. Really just try to be the change you want to see in the world. You know what I mean? Let the change start with you. If you see something that's wrong, fight it. If you see something that's good, amplify it. All of these things. These are the space that we have as individual humans, especially as Americans at this time. Like the change needs to come. We can't stand idly by, and we've got to raise our voice of resistance, but also, protect ourselves and protect our communities and protect those who are being attacked and who are being persecuted, protect LGBTQ youth and the community in general and support them, protect, our we're all immigrants in here, but protect our vulnerable immigrant communities and populations and support them. And, go out and spend your money where it can do the most good. And just know that these are our daily actions we take. It's what's within our world, and try to just keep going and don't get bogged down by the darkness. Don't let it pull you down. We're a community. We're stronger. We are humans here. So, let's lighten it up. Let's get back into music, but I want to make sure to take the time to acknowledge this time and the challenges and the nightmares that are happening for so many people here on Earth, specifically here in America, and try to just give a positive thought out there for individual empowerment of change and protection. So there we go. Here is my interview with Jeff Parker. Hi, Jeff. Thanks so much for coming on Hyphenate. How are you doing?
Hey, Randy. I'm doing well. Thank you.
Awesome, man.
I'm so great stoked to be here.
I'm stoked you made the time to sit down and talk. I've been a huge Tortoise fan for many years. I think I've embarrassed myself enough in front of you in the past, but
yeah, I appreciate it. Thanks.
Yeah, but it's great to sit down. So tell me a little bit about how all this started. Where did you first start learning guitar and getting involved in music?
I was always pretty interested in music from a young age. My parents are teachers by profession. And once me and my older sister showed any interest in anything, they would sign us up for lessons or like initiate it somehow. And they saw that I just, I always really liked music. I would listen to my father's records, with headphones and.
What kind of records were these? What are we talking about?
A lot of jazz. If you like jazz and soul music, like funk, R&B, Earth, Wind and Fire, and Jimmy Smith records and Art Blakey, Lee Morgan, Jazz Crusaders. Like stuff like that. And my sister had taken some guitar lessons. I have a sister who's 5 years older than me, but she had taken some guitar lessons, and so we had a guitar laying around the house, and I just picked it up, and my father signed me up for lessons. Like he taught at a university, and one of his students, who was a music major, he got to give me guitar lessons. And that's when I was about 8 or 9. And just kind of cool. Kept playing, been playing ever since,
What kind of guitar was it that you first picked up?
What kind of what?
Oh, sorry. What kind of guitar was it that you had around the house?
What guitar it was? I'm not sure what my sister's guitar was. But the first guitar that that my parents bought for me was a Yamaha nylon string acoustic guitar.
Okay. With those big chunky necks.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But it had, luckily, the nylon strings. It was a bit easier on the fingers. I think that was kind of their impetus behind it.
That's cool.
It
And what did your
flicked
father
at
teach?
least at least. I taught sociology.
Okay. And just happened to have a guitar playing student. So he worked out a deal to teach. He for the
Yeah,
student to teach you.
yeah,
That's cool.
yeah, yeah.
And what were you first playing? I mean, were you kind of starting with scales, chords, that kind of stuff, or did you want to learn songs? What was that experience like taking those first lessons?
It was a little bit of both. I remember my guitar teacher's name was John Spencer. I don't know whatever happened to him, but he was he pretty much had me like improvising and like writing like little songs and stuff kind of immediately. I mean that's kind of what he would use to to uh to teach me new stuff. It wasn't very methodical, you know. It was just kind of like uh yeah, um he'd figure out what I was interested in, and then we'd kind of work on that. And through that, he was teaching me like really rudimentary technique and stuff. It was really great, man. I mean, I think I'm a big advocate for your first teacher, and no matter what you're doing, should be good.
That would be
because
nice,
like
right? In a
because if
perfect
they
world. Yeah.
because if they suck, it'll just kind of like you won't want to keep going with it, you know. But if the teacher is good, it can set you on a path, you know. That's kind of what this guy did for me, because I had some more kind of traditional, like repressive kind of music teachers too, who were. I mean, I just didn't, you know. I didn't really want to be around them, but lucky I had that first good one who kind of inspired me enough to keep going with it, you know.
That's so crucial. I mean, yeah, I've talked to a lot of musicians here, and even musicians that teach, and it's that first interaction with anything. It's like a first impression. It's the same with people. You meet people for the first time, you want to make a good first impression, but with an instrument or trying to learn something, especially for young people. It's all about that. Is this relative to me, to what my interests are? Because if I hear the story so many times of he had me playing Mary Had a Little Lamb, or some
Right,
kind of folk thing that they weren't interested in. They wanted to be playing Kiss songs or something. It's just not.
right.
It's just not going to work. This is not going to. You're not going to be able to square that circle. But it sounds like your teacher was picking up on what you were interested in, and able to kind of customize the lesson for your interests, which is huge.
Yeah, it was amazing.
And you were saying you were 8 years old around that time?
Yeah, yeah,
Oh, wow.
yep.
That's huge too. I mean, that young age too, your brain's still open to everything. And were you reading music at that point, or what was your sort of the music theory side of things?
At that point, no, I wasn't.
Yeah.
We weren't dealing with written music. No,
Okay.
that wasn't until much later.
But just getting your hand on the strings, on the fretboard, learning some positions.
Yep.
Yeah. That's huge.
Yeah,
And then
my
with it,
first instrument
sorry.
actually was piano.
Oh, okay.
Say what?
Oh, that's great. I mean, piano's such a great
I said
foundation.
my. Yeah, but it never. It didn't. I mean, like again, the teacher, I wasn't really didn't vibe with the teacher, so I just kind of like switched to guitar.
And
It's
then
true.
what about bands? I mean, how soon, were you, it was those teenage years, were you starting groups, or what was that period like?
Yeah, I mean, I joined the I well, I joined the band at my junior high school. Um, and that's kind of when I that's when I kind of just started to become like a band nerd. Like I was played guitar in the jazz band, and I played trombone in the concert band. And I think I started a band with some other guys in the school band when we were like 13. We were playing like Jefferson Airplane tunes and stuff. I remember we would play White Rabbit,
Oh
and
gosh, you're right. One makes shoes
yeah,
made.
yeah.
That's cool.
That was my first band. I can't even remember what we were called. Um,
That's fun.
but that was I remember I played guitar. There was a bass guitar player and a drummer, and then I guess I had a then we started a kind of fusion band when I was in 10th grade. I think I was like 15. We had a fusion band called Shades of Gray.
Whoa.
Because there were
So stuff got
there were
serious
there was
quick.
two of us, yeah. But then it was like two of us were black, two guys were white, so we called our band Shades of Gray.
And what was the name of it again? Shades of
The
Gray.
band Shades of
That's
Gray.
amazing.
Yeah.
Oh no, yeah, now I got the name. Yeah, Shades of Gray. That's incredible. Oh man. Um, and as I mean, and then at that point, I mean, does that where experimentation, pushing things? I mean, fusion, and that's sort of the, one of the conceits of that, right? It's kind of it's crossover, it's pushing boundaries, it's searching. Was that? I mean, what was your motivation in approaching the guitar? Post, just learning the basics, kind of playing some covers. What got you excited about music and guitar after that?
Um, I'm not sure what really got me excited about it. I mean, it just everything. Music was always very exciting. It
Mm,
was. I mean, and me saying that we had a fusion. I mean, it was more just like an instrumental band. Like none of
okay.
us could sing. I mean, and that was kind of like. I mean, that's kind of like with Tortoise too. I mean, I mean, the things we were listening to weren't good enough to play at all. Was like the Dixie Dregs. I don't know if you remember that, if you know
No,
that group.
I don't know that group.
They were like kind of southern rock fusion instrumental band. Like
Okay.
in and they but we were listening to that and like Ronnie Laws and Hubert Laws and the Jazz Crusaders, stuff like that. And like the Police and stuff, the Police were like the biggest band in the world, I think, right around that time. So there was some of that in our music. Um, yeah,
That
I mean, but we were like young high school kids. Like in none of us were very good, like not.
but
But we
that's the
saved
time.
it.
Yeah, that's where you got to work. That's where you're working at it and learning it.
Yeah, but I was pretty much. I don't think I really had any ask for like music was really the only thing that I kind of held my interest. And I knew that like I don't know, like I said, my parents were teachers, so there was pressure to like go to college and like when you're in getting in your high school years, you got to pick a career. So I was kind of like, well, I'll, I guess I'll go to college for music, you know, and yeah. So
Where did you go to
that's.
college?
I went to Berklee College of Music
Oh, wow.
in
What was that?
Boston.
What was that process like of even just applying there? I mean, it's such a hallowed sort of institution of music. You know, was it? Were you intimidated to apply, or
Uh
did you feel was it easy?
no, no, I knew that I wanted to go. I mean, at that time, you didn't even have to audition to get into Berklee. You just had to. All you had to do was apply. You had to audition to get scholarships.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, I mean, I knew it that I wanted to go to Berklee because so many musicians that I admired at the time went there. You know, like John Schofield and Quincy Jones and Elliot Easton, like the guy from the Cars.
Oh yeah, I love Elliot
Um,
Easton.
yeah, man. I mean, he's incredible.
Lefty.
And oh, is he? I never knew that. Wow. Um,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah, with
yeah.
so
All
many
this stuff.
musicians that
Yeah,
I had.
backwards.
Wow, that's crazy. That makes a lot of sense. But you know, so
so
many
so
musicians
yeah.
I admired went to Berklee, so I was pretty set on going there. I applied some other places, but I pretty much, I mean, once I got accepted to Berklee, that was it.
And what was your time like there at Berklee? How was that?
It was fun, man. I mean, it's a pretty unique place in that it's, you know, there's students from all over the world, you know, from every continent, and pretty much everybody's between 18 and I don't know 24, 25.
Mm-hmm.
And you're hearing musicians, you know, there's people who can barely play, like very, 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 very beginner students, up to like prodigies, you know, and virtuosos. So it's very, very broad, all kinds of music, you know. Um,
Did
if
did
and you,
oh sorry, I'm just trying to think of like, you know, I feel like I'd be so intimidated. I mean, I don't think I have the chops for something like that. So I just keep picture myself like, oh, just trying not to shit my pants every day going to school. But was it a more welcoming, inclusive environment than that? I mean, did it, you know, obviously with students that diverse, they must be able to teach to your level, or were there massive expectations to start, you know, just throw you in the pool and swim?
um, I mean, I think if you kind of, it could be intimidating like that if you wanted to. I mean, my thing was, you know, like I said, you know, I mean, when I was, I don't know, 17 or 18, I couldn't really. I mean, I was a pretty good rock guitar player, I would say, when I was, but I didn't have any like, but I wanted to play jazz, and I had no idea how to do it, and so that's what I was there to learn to do, and totally open, you know, just to like learning and getting better. I mean, there was no way to go except up for sure, because I was. I mean, I didn't know anything at that time. You know, I mean, I knew a little bit. I knew more music in my ears than I did on my instrument, and I
That
was there to like learn. But but if you wanted Berklee to be a bummer and competitive, and like, you know, um, I knew a lot of musicians who kind of just don't even play music now anymore now because music school sucked for them so bad in that way, you know. But for me,
Yeah. I
I
mean,
just wanted to learn how to play, and yeah, I just wanted to learn how to play. That was pretty much it.
that's incredible. But I mean, that's such a great lesson for life too, which I think, college is often there to, that's the secret learnings, the meta learning is just learning how to get along and be social and get something out of life, you know,
Right,
all of those
right.
lessons just sort of come along with living, for the first time away from your parents and different environment, making friends, making enemies, learning what you like and don't like and how to fit in or stand out.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, it was. It was a nice experience for me. I met a lot of my people who are still really good friends and collaborators now, 40 years. With I have people I have 40-year relationships
Wow.
with and stuff.
What were some of the faculty like? Like, were there some heroes that were teaching, or people that stand out that were teaching at that time?
The best teacher I had at Berklee was my guitar teacher, who's since retired, named John Damian.
Mm.
Um, Other than him, I mean, I always struggled with the school part of Berklee. It was more, um, it was more the community of my peers and, um, and my guitar teacher, who was just like quirky, really creative and inspiring, you know, guitar player, like great guitar player who was like also a idiosyncratic and talented teacher. Um, but
Yeah, tell me about
the
him.
school
Well,
I always struggled with. Say
tell me a little
what?
bit about John Damien. Oh, just tell me a little bit about John Damien. I'm not familiar with him. Was he releasing records? Was he solely a teacher? What sort of made him stand out?
Uh, he stood out because he had these like geometric diagrams that he had that he would draw to kind of expand your knowledge of the fretboard.
Mm.
Um, there was a lot of it was just kind of based off of intervals and like like numbers and intervals,
Okay.
and he had this thing where he'd write them out and arrange them on the staff paper in this certain way, and then when he was done, he would look at it and it would be in the shape of a butterfly, like stuff, like just like fun stuff like that. But he was also like, um, I mean, I don't think he's really known outside of Boston, and other than the students who took who he taught.
I'm looking up his website right now, johndamian.com. He looks like a very creative guy, kind of got a Zappa kind of mustache thing happening now. And
Yeah,
he's got some
that's
books.
him.
He's got some books up there.
Yeah,
Oh, it's very cool. What a what
yeah,
a wild world. Just all the people he must have touched in his time. You figure you get a fresh group of musicians every year coming in, and like you said, some will take to it and some will, be scarred by it for the rest of their life and never
right.
pick up an instrument again. Like I said,
Yeah, I
it's that
know
way
that
with any
he and
college.
right. Yeah, I know that him and Bill Frisell are. I know. I'm not sure if Bill was one of his students because I think they might be about the same age.
Oh, that's cool. Oh, I'm gonna dig into this website more. Maybe I'll buy a
Yeah,
book, something I can look at.
yeah. John was the guy. I mean, when I was a student at Berklee, like once you kind of decided you were kind of wanted to get serious about playing jazz guitar, you kind of ended up with him.
That's
He's a
cool.
very conceptual guy. Like once you wanted to get away from the technical mechanical stuff, and once you wanted to start getting creative and take like more about improvising on a higher level, he was a guy who you were drawn to.
That's cool. I mean, tell me a little bit about, just in general, that your sort of relationship to jazz as, as a genre. I mean, I would definitely, through your work in Tortoise, there's undoubtedly there's a huge jazz influence, but how do you reflect on jazz in general, as a generalized sort of genre now in 2025? I mean, I think I kind of come from the suburban punk, rock kid school
Yeah,
of music, where jazz seemed like it was something that was for sophisticated people. You go to the Hollywood Bowl to see that kind of
right.
thing.
Yeah, I mean, I was always drawn to it, man. Like, that was the first music that I dug when I was from a very young age. Like I just always liked the mystery of it and the sophistication of it. It
Mm-hmm.
was rhythmically um interesting and yeah, man. I mean, I liked the feeling of kind of not knowing what was going to happen. And yeah, I mean, I can really only say it was the mystery of it that kind of resonated with me always as a listener, as a kid. But,
That's cool.
I always say that jazz, like, I kind of always consider myself an improvising musician first and foremost. Even like everything for me starts with improvising pretty much. And jazz introduced me to the concept of improvising, and improvising kind of just introduced me to the concept of being creative in music and kind of just having a creative musical life. Like I don't consider myself a jazz musician, um, even though I kind of come from that
Mm-hmm.
that uh, I mean, even I've oftentimes described Berklee as a trade school because it is. I mean, they kind of tell you that in freshman orientation, that they're there to teach you how to make a living in music,
Oh my God.
and through that, they teach you. Well, they teach you tools. I mean, especially at the time, they teach you like tools, like technique that you could use to function at that time as a working musician. Like,
Sure.
you take arranging classes and they teach you how you can you could write an arrangement in a taxi cab on the way to a session without having to, I mean, that they tell
Yeah,
you that,
that's
like
huge.
they give you these tools. And so I mean, I only say that to that my trade in college was was jazz. Like that's why when I went there, that was my major. I was a jazz composition and arranging major.
That,
So, but I think I align more with the tradition of the musicians who I admire and whose music I've studied. Um, but I don't. I'm not beholden to what is jazz or what people consider jazz music in my creative practice.
that's interesting, because I guess there are these, several eras or schools of thought of, whether it's traditional or the different genres, sub genres within jazz. Um, but I love the idea of, a school, if you're going to spend all the money and all the time in there, or if you have to justify it to your parents or whoever's footing the bill, they at least, they can back it up and say, these are marketable skills we're teaching you. You could leave the school and go get a
Right.
job as a jazz musician. at least there's some kind of fulfillment on their end to justify the value of school, which even a lot of liberal arts colleges don't even bother with. Like, we're not even going to bring up work.
Right.
This is something else we're doing here. This has nothing to do with money.
I mean, Berklee was very profound in that way,
Mm-hmm.
Man, I mean, and in 1982 in Hampton, Virginia, where I grew up, it was really hard to like learn how to play jazz. Like now you can major in jazz at almost every college in the country.
Yeah.
40 plus years ago, there was hardly any place to even learn it. Now it's like, it's not only, it's an industry now,
Teaching jazz.
Absolutely. I mean, and most jazz musicians make their living as teachers because that's where the money is.
That's interesting.
It's crazy, man. It's wild.
What was I going to say? Oh, and then what after college? Where do you land then?
After college, I landed in Chicago.
Why Chicago?
I moved there. I was kind of, I mean, the actual tangible reason that I moved to Chicago was because they were opening a Tower Records in Chicago, and I got a job at the Tower in Chicago to help them open the store.
Oh, cool.
So that's what landed me in Chicago. I had never been there, but I knew a few musicians from Chicago, and I remember I somehow got my hands on a copy of the Chicago Reader, which was a local newspaper, like local not newspaper. What would you call those?
Weekly sort of
yeah, like a weekly.
Yeah.
Like the Village Voice or like Westworld or West, like, any of those. I'm sure they had like the LA Weekly.
The LA Weekly was the one out here. Yeah, that was that one. Or what's the one in Atlanta is always, that's got a funny name. I want to say it's like Freak Beat or something, or no, what was that? The Atlanta one has always had a funny name. I can't remember it.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah. But I got a copy of the one the one in Chicago called the Chicago Reader. And I looked at the listings and, man, I mean, the music scene was crazy. It was huge and vibrant. And I was just I'll just
creative loafing.
Check this out,
Creative loafing is the one in Atlanta. Sorry.
Oh right. Creative loafing.
I knew it always stood out. We do those interviews for tour press. Right. You're like, well, this one's for creative loafing. Like that. What is this? That can't be real.
Right. Yeah.
So were you working for Tower in Boston when you were going to school, and then they opened one in Chicago and they asked you wanted to go, or no, it was something you applied?
No, I didn't work at the Tower in Boston, okay. but a lot of people I knew did. So I was in there all the time, and I think the manager of the jazz room was an alto saxophone player named Andrew D'Angelo, who's pretty well. I mean, if you follow avant-garde jazz, he's well-known figure. But he helped me get the job in Chicago because he was cool. In administration, had an administrative role somehow. But yeah, man, that's how I ended up there. It was originally supposed to be a Passover between a stopover in on my way to moving to New York. But I
Okay.
just kind of got swept up in the local music community there, and just never ended up in New York, just in Chicago.
Yeah, tell me a little bit about that. What were the first groups you were playing with, or that you were going to see? I mean, how did you find your way to into the Tortoise band? I know we'd spoken in the past. There was lots of versions of Tortoise, that sort of bubbled up around that time with different members coming and going.
Yeah, well, one of the first gigs that I did in Chicago um, uh, was with this alto saxophone player named Ernest Dawkins, who was in the AACM, which is the Association for the Advancement of Creative Musicians.
Mm.
Like, I don't know if you know
I don't know
that
that. No.
organization, but they were really revolutionary, important musicians collectives from Chicago. Like all the members of the Art Ensemble of Chicago were in the AACM. Anthony Braxton, Henry Threadgill, um, just
Sounds heavy.
tons. Like, yeah, yeah, and I started playing with Dawkins, and eventually he asked me to join his band, and which is called the New Horizons Ensemble.
So yeah, from that group, I mean, moving there, and what were what were sort of the venues like? Obviously the jazz scene in Chicago is famous. There's a lot going on, but how did you find that?
Yeah,
That city and that scene.
man, it was just like really, it was just really vibrant and really diverse musically and in every way. I mean, the community was vibrant, like, and I was in my early 20s, and part of the reason that I was attracted to a city like Chicago was because I didn't want to be a jazz musician, man. I did. It wasn't. I was interested in so much other stuff, and I just wanted to like make music that was, I don't know, relevant. I wanted to feel like I was kind of a part of something. I didn't want to like make music that was, I don't know, 50 years old. I wanted to make something that was, I don't know, living.
Was happening
Um,
now, had audience, had a life progression, future stuff.
yeah, yeah, and so I wasn't. When I moved all right. So there's I'm gonna try and fill in some holes here. So I moved to Chicago. I worked at Tower Records for about a year and a half. Probably the last half year that I worked at Tower, people were calling me for gigs. So I was uh, probably playing more gigs than I was working at the record store. Eventually, I made a recording with the New Horizons Ensemble, which was Ernest Dawkins' group from the AACM.
Mm-hmm.
And from the recording date, I was able to quit my job at the record store, and I paid my rent for 6 months. And then in that 6 months, I was going to try and, figure out a way that I could just play music for a living. So at that time, I was playing all kinds of gigs. I was in a band, a funk band called Uptighty. that was led by Leroy Bach, who used to be in Wilco. Like he was in
Mhm.
Wilco around the Ghost is Born, like around that time. Um, but I was doing all kinds of stuff, man. Like, definitely not just jazz. And I was really open. And so one day I went into the Rainbow Club, which was this bar in Wicker Park. And Johnny Herndon was working behind the bar. And he was like, "Man, you're the guitar player in Ernest Dawkins' group," because he was a fan of the AACM. And even though, Johnny, he was playing in punk rock bands and stuff, but he liked more creative stuff. And we just kind of became friends and like started playing. And eventually a spot moved or opened up in the loft where Johnny Herndon, John McIntyre, and Doug McCombs all shared. And so I moved in with them, and we just kind of started playing together. Um, John McIntyre had built like a really rudimentary recording studio in the loft, and we were doing recording sessions, and we started playing. Um, Tortoise uh, would start to gain some traction, and whenever they would play in Chicago, they would ask me to sit in with them until eventually they asked me to go on tour with them without officially being in the band. And at the end of the tour, they asked me to be in the band. So that's kind of the story of that.
And
I tried to just make make it more linear.
no, that's great. I mean, how does a group like Tortoise operate? I mean, it's obvious. I think it doesn't necessarily it doesn't align with like the rock band with the front man and the lead guitar player and the this and that. But I mean, I've gotten the sense that John McIntyre is sort of the de facto sort of leader of the group, but he's on drums, or it seems like everyone's kind of floating. Like, what were some of those? How does that early sort of constellation of music happening? Like, how did you find that, or what does it look like for people who don't know from the outside?
I mean, Tortoise is a band uh, where everybody in the band was kind of like pigeonholed into a thing, but everybody was kind of trying to get out of it, or
Mm-hmm.
just have a different outlet. Like, most of those guys played in punk and hardcore bands, but like I said, Johnny Herndon, he was listening to music from the AACM, like creative improvised music. And basically, I was trying to get out of my jazz uh, bag, and they were kind of trying to get out of their like punk rock bags. And we all were kind of meeting at this common ground of just trying to share everybody's interests and make something tangible out of all the stuff that everybody was into. I
That's
mean, that's
cool.
basically it.
So everyone's kind of
Yeah.
bringing in ideas, and there's a jam will sort of happen, and then McIntyre's recording it and sort of chopping it up after, or kind of pulling out. I mean, I guess I'm just pulling from things that the way I've operated in bands, where it's sort of like everyone brings it,
Yeah.
and then someone has to kind of be the one to sit down and go, I think let's focus on this area, or let's more of this, less of that kind of stuff.
Yeah, totally. I mean, that's kind of, like, I mean, Tortoise it's a rock. I mean, it functions like a rock band,
Okay.
where like everybody kind of like plays their part. Like, you have a thing and you figure out what you're going to play on it, and like that's it. It's like, the same way that kind of anybody who's played in a band with their friends. I mean, that's just kind of what you do. Like maybe somebody, except our band didn't have a singer, and like everybody could kind of like play. Everybody in Tortoise plays one instrument well, but can play a lot of different things well enough to kind of like write parts on it,
Okay.
And
Yeah, I mean, because you've been on vibraphone or on I don't know with the mallets at times as well, right, in live settings.
yeah, I'll play vibes, I'll play keyboards, I'll play bass guitar, I'll play synth bass, I'll play drums in the studio, but not like not live. I mean, those guys are such great drummers. I feel like a fool if I try to sit down
But
and like bang out my like one or two drum beats I can play.
but will it come from a jam and then sort of congeal into like into a song form, or what is the? I guess every song is probably different, I would imagine. But what is on average, kind of composition of a Tortoise track? Does someone come in with the idea, or is everybody sort of just throwing ideas at the wall all the time?
It's all of that.
Okay.
Um, we we tend to we will get together and jam, and then but usually not much comes out of that. The the most I think the most productive way with Tortoise is when somebody introduces a concrete idea to the band, and then everybody just kind of adds their thing to it. Whenever we try and improvise, I mean, Tortoise isn't an improvising band like at all.
Really, that's
Like,
interesting. I feel like people would be shocked to hear that. They probably imagine it's all just bopping off of each other, closer to something like the Grateful
yeah,
Dead.
no,
No.
yeah, not at all, man. It's I mean, there's sometimes that there'll be sections in songs that open up into like where we're improvising together, but it's usually very specific. It's like um, the events that will happen within the improvisation are very scripted,
I see.
even if it's we're kind of trying to get from point A to point B more than just kind of like, oh yeah, let's see what happens, blah, blah, blah.
It's
Like
the structured
that's
improvisation.
yeah, whenever we've tried to do that, it's been disastrous.
That's
Like,
interesting. And then
yeah,
is songwriting credit shared between the band, even though if one person brings in the idea, or is there sort of ownership? Like, oh, well, this is a Johnny song, this is a John song, this is that kind of thing.
no, we share writing credit,
That's
because
cool.
at the end of the day, I mean, it's like it's just Tortoise. I mean, it becomes the sound of all of us, and,
Yeah.
and it's and it's always somebody else is always adding something new to it. I mean, and Tortoise is also very democratic. It's which is why it takes us so long to make stuff, because all the ideas pretty much they they they're subject to the approval of everyone,
Of the group.
and that can take some time. When we've
And
collaborated with other people and invited them into that, they can it can be pretty frustrating.
that everybody's got to agree and buy in to the idea for it to go forward.
Yes, yeah,
Right.
totally.
But it also may account for the prolific, sort of solo work that a lot of the members have done as well. I mean, I'm sure everybody in Tortoise has a stack of ideas that, like, oh, cool. All right. Well, that goes, submits for the Tortoise pile. And if it doesn't land in the Tortoise pile, it goes over here to this pile.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, yeah. There's a lot of that. I mean, Tortoise, man. I mean, I can't. It's in being in that band, like, I got my own solo thing that keeps me pretty busy these days. But it's totally informed by my experience of living in or with being in that band. Especially, I mean, the most profound thing of it is just seeing the landscape of music move from analog to digital, and kind of using the digital, like being able to use the digital process as a way to compose music, which, in the current um, version of Tortoise, like, since, I don't know, 1996, that's just how Tortoise makes music. We don't, we use the studio, like and the process of being able to move audio around in chunks to make our music a lot, and you couldn't do that. I mean, people forget, man, you couldn't do that shit. Serious.
It's
I
a whole
mean,
new world.
it was really hard to do that.
Yeah.
It was
Cutting
hard
tape
as
and
shit
things
to
like
do
that.
that, man.
I mean, even those early like hip
It
hop,
was really hard.
productions. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it was hard to do it, man, before 2000. Now, it's people take it for granted. But
totally. I mean, was there things that, like sampling and looping and things like that would occur in Tortoise work or even in your solo work?
Oh, totally. Yeah, that's kind of that's a very big part of my own solo music and Tortoise's music for sure.
Tell me a little bit about that, just sort of how you operate. You talk a lot, like improvisation is a big part of it, but then also this digital sort of production and looping and things. And tell me a little bit about how some of that comes together. Like what sort of elements are looped and which ones are improvised.
I mean, the improvising aspect, that's more in my own music, like that's
right.
because, like I said, Tortoise isn't an improvising band.
Right. I say more towards your solo work, I guess.
Oh, sure. Yeah, it's I mean, the New Breed project kind of grew out of my interest in hip hop production. Just being a fan of that music, and then once the technology moved from hardware to software, where you could have a laptop and you had samplers in the software, you could sample and make beats without having to, have like a SP12 or an MPC or whatever production like workstation. You could just do it on your computer.
Yeah.
So I just kind of started just to kind of get more of a technical grasp on that music. I just started to make a lot of beats myself. But at the same time, was still, like I said, I consider myself an improvising musician. So I was trying to figure a way to meld my interests in hip hop production with the improvising, and just kind of make yeah, I don't know. Yeah, but that's basically sums that up.
Yeah. But it's huge, and I think, and as a solo artist, it allows you kind of more of that freedom to sort of cover all the bases. So you're not necessarily bringing in other musicians, hiring session people. If you can sort of build up your tracks or or beats in a digital production realm.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think the idea, especially with the first New Breed record, was I wanted to make, I had the idea that just to make, a jazz like a kind of jazz record that sounded like hip hop and felt more like hip hop. Um, but wasn't just like musicians playing over static beats. You know, it was more like the the worlds were more colliding in a way that sounded and felt more like improvised music than static like hip hop or something. And you
That's
know,
cool.
a lot of that had to do with kind of my, I don't know, you know, I mean, I'd like used to DJ and still do from time to time, but I used to DJ a lot, and I've always collected records. And you know, I'd listen to like these Herbie Hancock records or like records on Strata East, and they were just like really just soulful and like funky and like progressive, but I don't know, man. I mean that, but I wanted it to sound more like somebody had made the music from samples, like, and it sounded more like chopped up and like weird, the way that like, I don't know, sometimes, you know, hip hop production can sound, you know, compressed and like dark. I don't know.
Yeah, like, you know, like you were like sampling yourself, but sort of mixing it in a way where it felt like these were older recordings. You were pulling from things.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, I mean, that's Dean and I in the band No Age. We would use that a lot. Like we from the get go, just being a duo, we were always pulling loops and things and samples. And at some point, I was just like, well, I only really want to sample us. You know, just because that gets you out of the way of clearance or trying to, you know, keeps the vernacular sort of insulated in a way. You know, and so we could be able to control that, but then also, but not being afraid to just take a piece of our own music and then slow it down or reverse it or just, you know, just manipulate it like you would as a DJ or as a remixer of, you know, using those kind of techniques. And I guess our music is, you know, sort of punk and shoegazy or whatever. It's more rock oriented, but all those soundscape things and all those parts of the song layering and textures, you know, sort of all come from ourselves in some weird way, you know, using that stuff to sort of remix and reinform or sort of, but a lot of that I would be inspired too. Like, oh, there's a weird sound over here. I want to use that in the song and sort of write a song around a weird loop or sample or something. Yeah.
Yeah. It's fun, you know, kind of anything to take you out of your zone. And just get weird, you know. I mean, this fucking world needs more weird, man.
Absolutely. Keep it fresh.
Needs more weird. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, that's a great place to leave it. Thank you so much, Jeff. Where do you want people to follow you and learn more about your live dates, new music you have coming out? What's the best way for people to keep in touch?
I mean, I have a website, which I try to keep it kind of up to date. It's the jeffparkersounds.com. Yeah, and I'm on Instagram. Yeah, that's probably the extent of my social media. Instagram. I'm not on Facebook.
What's your handle on?
But yeah, man,
on Instagram. What is it just your name?
It's Jeff Parker Sounds.
There you go.
One
awesome,
word, Jeff
man.
Parker Sounds.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate you taking the time.
Yeah, thanks, man. Really,
great.
Man, it's my pleasure. It was a great conversation.
Yes, there he is, Jeff. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast and talking about all of the awesome things you do. And that's going to wrap up our 3-week run of Jeffs. We had started with Jeff Byron, then Jeff Schroeder, now to Jeff Parker. I don't know who the fourth Jeff was. I could have gotten. If your name is Jeff and you play guitar and you're epic, write me. You can write to the podcast at on Gmail at the hyphenate_halftime@gmail.com. You can also find me on the Instagram at Randy S. Randall. And don't forget to follow Jeff Parker on the Instagram as well at Jeff Parker Sounds. You can also from there find International Anthem on Bandcamp and purchase his latest album, The Way Out of Easy. And then you can also go see him live this fall. He'll be out there playing shows. You don't want to miss him playing live. It really is transcendent and incredible. Jeff, you are a legend, and thank you for coming and spending some time here with me, chatting, chopping it up. I will see everybody on Monday. Be well, spread light into the world, be a positive change, heal yourself, and be of service to your fellow man. Do something good. You'll feel good. It really is one of those things, where it's a gift you get to give away that you only get more of. Live your life with love and love for other people. And I tell you, it comes back tenfold, 100-fold. You really fill yourself with something when you give something away like that. So go out there and be of service. Do something good for the world. Whatever it is that you think you should be doing, take the time and go do it. It'll come back to you. It'll be worth the investment of your time. All right. Have a good weekend. Be safe. Bye.
Tortoise is a band where everybody in the band was kind of like pigeonholed into a thing, but everybody was kind of trying to get out of it, or just have a different outlet. Like, most of those guys played in punk and hardcore bands, but like I said, Johnny Herndon, he was listening to music from the AACM, like creative music, creative improvised music.